Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. We begin in Alberta, where the Edmonton Police Service says they have narrowed down the location of the remains of Samuel Bird, the 14-year-old who has been missing from Edmonton since June 1st. EPS has said recently they believe Bird is dead and his death is, quote, criminal in nature. At a press conference at Carrot Creek, Alberta, about 90 minutes west of Edmonton, the investigation's lead detective said that recent findings from a number of sources indicate that Bird's body is likely buried in this area. Officers began searching the area with drones and a cadaver dog shortly after the press conference ended. They're asking nearby residents to keep an eye out for anything suspicious and to contact them if they do. Detective Jared Bueller says there are suspects in Bird's disappearance.
Just our information and analysis with recent information brought us here. As I said, it was compelling. It was compelling enough to immediately send our canine to this location from the other location. This is worth our best shot now. I know that we're committed to working together to bring this home, whether it's today, tomorrow, this week, or next spring. This is not going away. We will investigate this to the end. I assure you of that. The people responsible for this will be held accountable.
First Nation leaders in Northern Ontario have declared a state of emergency over the flow of illegal drugs and resulting deaths in their communities. The declaration comes following what Anishinaabe Nation says was a drug-related shooting incident that unfolded in Ganoogaming First Nation. Ganoogaming was placed under a shelter-in-place on Wednesday morning as Ontario Provincial Police searched for two armed and dangerous males. That advisory has now been lifted, and the OPP says one person is dead and another was injured. No arrests have been made, and the OPP provided no update on the two individuals they were looking for. Ganoogaming First Nation, roughly 300 kilometers northeast of Thunder Bay, has itself been under a state of emergency for 16 months due to an increase in violence and drug and alcohol-related crime in the community, which was overwhelming leadership and causing community members to fear for their safety. Chief Sherry Taylor reissued a call for action on that state of emergency following Wednesday's homicide in the community of roughly 200 people. In a statement, Taylor said it is absolutely tragic that the young life of one of our members has been taken and another one has been injured. The two outstanding armed and dangerous individuals continuing to be at large is a major concern, and we urge anyone with any information or know of their current whereabouts to report it to the OPP. Taylor had a message for her community members.
If you continue to harbor criminals and gangs, continue to sell the drugs to our kids, you will be banned from the community and you will have to leave.
The tragic incident comes as chiefs and others from 49 First Nations in Northern Ontario gathered in Thunder Bay for a conference on addressing gang infiltration, illegal drugs, and drug-related violence in Anishinaabe Nation territory. Grand Chief Alvin Fiddler and First Nations leadership on Thursday declared a state of emergency on illegal drugs and deaths.
And it's come to the point, in some cases, where our chiefs and councils feel they are losing control of their community because we have outsiders coming in from Winnipeg, from Ottawa, from Toronto, and elsewhere, taking over the communities by fear and intimidation.
Anishinaabe police are reporting an increase of more than 300% in cocaine and fentanyl seizures between 2023 and 2024. Fiddler called on Ontario and Canada to equip First Nations with the resources they need to take back control of their communities. The Nan Grand Chief called for an urgent meeting with government ministers. Meanwhile, in Ottawa, members of the Office of the Auditor General were before the Committee on Indigenous and Northern Affairs this week to discuss a 2024 report on the First Nations and Inuit policing program. The committee heard that the report finds the program has largely been mismanaged, while both Public Safety Canada and the RCMP failing to actively engage communities in decision-making. As much as $48 million targeted for the program is going unspent each fiscal year. RCMP positions under the program also remain unfilled, and it has not been updated since 1996. Deputy Auditor General Andrew Hayes told the committee a familiar problem.
We found in our 2024 report that the department had not engaged with the First Nations and Inuit communities in a way that would have been allowing or supporting meaningful contribution by those communities. For example, essentially the funding decisions had already been made before the First Nations communities or Inuit communities were consulted.
Some First Nation chiefs in Manitoba are sounding the alarm once again regarding Jordan's Principle funding. 7 First Nations are prepared to take matters to court if the federal government doesn't deal with their backlog. With the details, here's T.R. Wheatley.
The Interlake Reserves Tribal Council, or IRTC, says they will take court action next week if they don't get a response from the federal government about fixing its Jordan's Principle backlog affecting more than 400 families in central Manitoba. Executive Director Carl Zadnik says the feds have failed to negotiate in good faith.
We were promised over $15 million back in 2024-25 fiscal funding to earmark for these disadvantaged and children with disabilities. And so we're shortfalled of almost over $5.3 million of that promised funding.
Zadnik says funding cuts, which the feds say were being misspent, resulted in cutting services and staff for the 7 First Nations within IRTC. And this past April, the Tribal Council started their fiscal year with a $500,000 budget. Lake Manitoba Chief Cornell McLean says First Nations were set up for failure.
Right from the get-go, from Health Canada, Jordan's Principle Program, Joe Gashero, he said yes to everything, and then, now all of a sudden we're under a financial review.
IRTC says their Jordan's Principle requests are for medical transportation, mental health and disability services, land-based healing, school lunch programs, and sports initiatives. In September 2024, the First Nations Child and Family Caring Society were back at the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal, putting pressure back on the feds for non-compliance to uphold Jordan's Principle. That process revealed a backlog of over 82,000 cases nationwide. Around the same time, the feds announced they would be going back to the basics. But Dauphin River Chief Lawrence Latander says the government's method has no quality control.
And using Jordan's Principle to cover other underfunded program areas such as NIHB and poverty supports. ISC does not have a triage or case management mechanism in place to receive requests. Relying on first come, first serve, that leaves children with high need and urgent needs waiting.
And according to Canoon-Jishtagan Chief Tony Travers, they can't even help anyone who lives in urban and rural areas.
We can't fund the off-reserve membership, and that's what we depended on the Interlake Reserve Tribal Council for.
Funding that IRTC says could mean life or death for some families. T.R. Wheatley, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Time for a quick break, and then our Truth and Politics panel will be here to discuss the latest at the First Nations University of Canada. Stay with us. Welcome back. First Nations University of Canada in Saskatchewan is under fire after an internal investigation into its president was leaked. The report obtained by APTN News looks into allegations against FNU President Jacqueline Ottman over nepotism and mismanagement. The report prepared by Deloitte Legal Canada substantiated many of the allegations and found the president created a so-called circle of favor around her office. A statement from the chair of the Board of Governors at First Nations University said the reports were analyzed and the vote was held to retain Ottman. For more on this, our Truth and Politics panel is here. Jennifer Leywitz is the CEO of Pusquash Strategies, and Nigan Sinclair is a columnist with the Winnipeg Free Press. Jennifer, Nigan, great to see you as always. Jennifer, we're back in your neck of the woods here again this week, so we'll start with you. What do you make of the allegations against First Nations University President Jacqueline Ottman?
Well, I think the allegations are quite serious, especially when we're hearing about them through the media and reports are being released that says there's a lot of internal issues happening. It definitely raises the questions, what's going on internally over there. And it's also a part of a bigger picture on all of these investigations that currently are taking place with our institutions and governments and organizations that are Indigenous led. These third-party investigations are starting to raise questions on what the purpose of them is, because it seems like when the reports come out, we're automatically on the defense for sure, but it raises the question on whether or not we need more accountability and transparency mechanisms internally to handle these sorts of things.
Nigan, the chair of the Board of Governors says it commissioned and reviewed the reports, and the board voted to retain Ottman. The statement says the board has complete confidence in the president and stands behind her. Your thoughts on all of this?
For anyone who doesn't know the history of the First Nations University, the absolute scandal that was just a decade or so ago was involved in political interference at the campus, in which that massive overhauls of the board took place, in which elected officials who frankly should never run a university, or at least should not have the balance of power when it comes to major decisions involving academics. People should be free to speak and study and not have to worry about retribution. That involved a whole restructuring of the board, which was then removed, so that now, just a few years ago, now First Nations chiefs are once again back in power. This is a massive problem. It's a problem that makes our institutions look highly problematic. It doesn't have any longevity. It's clear that just a few years ago, when the chiefs took the balance of the power at the First Nations University, it led to a number of concerning, then rising issues with this current president. And on the allegations of this president, while they have perhaps aren't the clearest point of that report was that the individual who brought the concerns, the financial concerns, to light was immediately removed by the president. That should tell you a lot about the perceived allegations of guilt. If you remove the person, what are you so scared of? If you're not able to face some of the questions that the person that you have in charge of your finances, and you remove them instead of deal with them directly, I mean, what else do you have to say about the concerning features of that report?
Jennifer, concerned First Nations University faculty are starting to come forward. Among the things they're calling for is the suspension of the executive, including Ottman, and the board to be dissolved, among other things. Should the board and those funding the institution be listening to the faculty?
I think so, of course. You know, the faculty and I'm worrying about the integrity of the faculty and how much they feel they're going to be heard when these evidence-based reports are coming out and we're not listening to them. How bad is the divide going to be, and what are we doing to actually attract good professors and good faculty into our institutions that teach our fellow First Nations people when they are seeing it play out widely that, you know, their concerns are not going to be heard?
All right. Nigan, you had mentioned this, but this isn't the first time First Nations University has had troubles. About 15 years ago, the Saskatchewan government and federal government withheld millions in funding for the university over governance issues. Do you think there's a risk of that happening here again?
Oh, undoubtedly. I mean, when you are on probation and you begin to perceived or not, get up to activities that look very eerily similar to the reasons you're on probation in the first place, what happens? You immediately go on probation, and this goes on all of us. This makes all of us look terrible. I mean, every single Indigenous person who is working at a university already has to face monumental questions about the legitimacy of the work that we do, the departments that we run, the very fact that we're there in the first place. And so then when you get an organization or you get a group of individuals who then act in questionable means or have certainly ways in which they suggest questions in the activities that they do, that then leads on all of us. It impacts all of us, because every single Indigenous person in a university therefore is implicated. If you, the simple statement, if you can't run your own university, then why is it that we're giving you a department? Why is it that we're recognizing your relevancy in arts? Or why is it that we require young Canadians to learn 3 credit hours in Indigenous anything? You know, this implicates all of us, and it is very concerning.
Jennifer Niga, we're going to have to leave it there, and we're going to continue this conversation on First Nations University over on the podcast. Thanks to you both.
Yeah, we are.
A new season of Nation to Nation kicks off tonight, and a new season of APTN Investigates premieres this Saturday. We have previews of both after the break. Stick around. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. And a beautiful, colorful sky and stunning sunset as seen by Nancy Powderhorn. Thanks for sharing, Nancy, and for being our photo of the day. If you'd like to be our next photo of the day, you can send your pictures to share@aptn.ca. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, 14 in Fredericton, 13 for Halifax, 7 in Kuujjuaq, 6 in Nain, 15 in Montreal, 11 and sunny in Chibougamau, 10 with showers in Sault Ste. Marie, cloudy and 13 in North Bay, 13 with showers in Thunder Bay, sunny, and 12 for Sioux Lookout. 14 with the sun out in God's Lake and Norway House. 18 and sunny in Winnipeg, 19 under sunny skies for Dauphin. 20 with the sun out in Regina, sun's out, and 22 in Saskatoon. 20 in Meadow Lake, 14 in La Ronge. In northern Alberta, 13 in High Level, sunny, and 18 in Fort McMurray. 23 under sunny skies for Edmonton, sun's out, and 24 for Lethbridge. 22 in Penticton, 18 in Kamloops. Cloudy and 15 in Prince George, 7 and sunny in Dease Lake. 2 in Old Crow, 4 in Whitehorse. 6 in Yellowknife, 5 in Norman Wells. -1 with snow in Sax Harbor, 2 above in Paulatuck. -1 for Chesterfield, 2 in Baker Lake. -10 in Resolute, -5 in Joe Haven. Familiar face Karen Pugliese is the new host of Nation to Nation, and she's here to tell us what's ahead on the program later this afternoon, in just about 5 minutes from now, after your evening newscast.
Here's what's ahead on Nation to Nation. We'll have a look back at what's happened over the summer and what's to come. The Liberal government has not changed, but Mark Carney's take on reconciliation is not the same. We'll talk to a panel of journalists about how that's playing out. And looking ahead, will there be an Indigenous candidate for the NDP leadership? Well, not yet. We'll have some news that may be disappointing for some about who's not running. And finally, what stories are unfolding in Ottawa in the fall? We'll talk about potential cuts to Indigenous Services Canada and if a new pipeline from Alberta to British Columbia is likely. All of this ahead on Nation to Nation. That's coming up in just a matter of minutes.
Thanks, Karen. Looking forward to that panel. APTN Investigates returns this week as well with an all-new season. Injustice for My Sister. Video journalist Tamara Pimentel uncovers shocking details surrounding the death of a young Casca woman in the 1960s. Anne Mary Dick was only 18 years old when she was killed in the small community of Upper Liard, Yukon. A man confessed to the crime. A trial was held, but he was ultimately found not guilty on a technicality. Now, more than 5 decades later, her family is still seeking answers and justice. Here's a preview.
When a family loses a loved one, their story doesn't end. It carries on through prayer and ceremony.
My sister's case is very heavy. Me and my family, we fell apart. We try to get support. We try to support each other.
Anne Mary Dick died over 60 years ago. In Upper Liard, Yukon, her story is a lost narrative. Mary Ann Dick was named after her late sister, and it's her life goal to bring the story of Anne Mary to light.
I worked on her case for so long, and I'll never come out of my head. I'll never come out of my heart. I'm so heartbroken the way she died. Justice failed her. Really failed her.
Important looking story there. You can catch the season premiere of APTN Investigates this Saturday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And Tamara will be here tomorrow on the show to talk about the Justice for My Sister documentary. That's all the time we have for your APTN National News for this Thursday. For much more, you can visit our website, aptnnews.ca. And Creason will be here with the very latest and your first look at the day's news at 1 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow. I'm Dennis Ward. Marcy Miigwech, thanks for being with us. Now stay tuned. The season premiere of Nation to Nation is just seconds away. Have a great night.